Good evening, everybody. We have got a brand new bunch of kittens that are coming through the house. This time we're just kind of like a halfway house. These guys were found on a factory and had to be taken away from their mom, who is wild, wild, wild. But we've had to transition them to solids, teach them how to use a sandbox and all that. And so by the weekend, they should be tamed enough that we can pass them on to the foster mommy who's going to look after them. But it's been fascinating for me, the various reactions that we've had out of the kittens. We've named them on a James Bond theme, and this little chap in the tuxedo, we've called him 007, James Bond, and his reaction to being taken away from his mom and brought somewhere strange was to get really, really angry. And so he hisses and spits and goes absolutely crazy when he feels out of control of the situation. This gorgeous little one here, we've called Moneypenny. And Moneypenny was really quiet and unassuming until we put food in front of her. And then, my goodness, she started roaring. And I guess in some ways it was her way of compensating, because it seems that she was by far the smallest of all of them. And so she was compensating by being really aggressive around meal times. This little chap we called M, and he's got this beautiful M on his forehead. His reaction to the trauma has been to purr and to be really, really friendly. And he just purrs his way into the situation. When all the others hide, he comes and spends time with the human beings. And his way of handling it seems to have been just to embrace the situation as best he could. This one is Q, and what's unusual is that it's a ginger, but it's a little girl. Normally the gingers are boys, and to find a ginger girl is very unusual. Q has been very quiet and very withdrawn, and even now you saw she would just sit on my lap. She seems to be handling the situation by withdrawing. And it struck me that, in a sense, just as these kittens have been through a trauma, our world, our lives have been traumatized by the last 18 months of the coronavirus and the uncertainty that lies ahead of us. And I've had the privilege this week of attending a course by Milan Nell. You might remember him. I interviewed him in one of my check-ins a couple of months ago. And Milan Nell has been talking to us about how can we become fully functional, self-sustaining, self-reliant, spiritually functioning human beings. And that sounds like such a mouthful, but what he's really saying is, that God is at work in us, and we should be the best versions of ourselves that we can be. But part of that is to recognize what happens to us when we go through a trauma, what happens to us when we go through a difficulty. And in some ways, learning the various reactions of the kittens has been quite an eye-opener for me, because it's spoken to me of examining myself a little bit and saying, what have I got to learn? But I want to spend a bit of time this evening just thinking through this idea of how is it that we react when we face trouble. I'm going to move to my desk, but I did just want you to meet the kittens very briefly. And maybe the lingering question you can ask yourself is, which of the kittens do I identify with? Am I James Bond, really angry and responding with aggression? Am I Moneypenny, who seems calm and serene, but when the moment comes, I grab? Am I like M, kind of just embracing the moment with warmth and affection? Or am I like Q, a little bit withdrawn, maybe even a bit shell-shocked? And maybe there are other reactions that you can think of too, but it's fascinating to spend a bit of time thinking about these things. Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing that new batch of little kittens. And right next to me in a basket, we have one of our older ones. This is little Lois. and she's just doing so well. Just loves keeping me company while I work at my desk and is starting to purr. But I really wanted to share the story of the different reactions of the kittens, because as I've been reflecting on what everybody has been going through in these crazy times, I think it is important for us to take stock and say, how am I growing? How have I responded to the situation? And are there things that I need to work through? Because I think sometimes we let fear, we let uncertainty and these things all shape us, instead of being the ones who take hold of the situation and shape it. And I've been thinking quite a lot about a verse in Philippians where Paul says, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you to will and act according to his good purpose. And when he's talking about working out, he's not talking about calculating or going to the gym, but rather he's talking about taking something that is inside and working it outward to be transformed, that the salvation that is already inside of us begins to ooze through our pores, and that we breathe out in our words and in our actions, that our salvation, the fact that Jesus saved us, that we are loved, that we have a destiny with him, that begins to impact how we live in the world. And so I want to leave that thought with you tonight. Which kitten were you out of all the ones that I showed? Were you the one who has kind of made the best of it? Were you frightened? Did you withdraw? Or were you a little bit caught out at first and then caught up later? Or maybe you had another reaction. But how can you take a moment to take stock and say, Lord, I want to shine for you? And as Paul carries on in that passage that I just read, he said that we are like children of God who shine like stars in a broken world. And that's our task, and that's our calling. I do pray that you are keeping well. I kind of jumped in so quickly because the kittens were wriggling in their box and doing their thing, and I didn't want to let the moment get away. But I really do hope that you are well, and I do pass greetings from my home to yours, and love and care. I just have a few announcements that I want to leave with you. And the first is that I really do want to encourage and invite you to consider coming along to our physical services. We've got our protocols well in place. I think it's safer to come to church than it is to go to the shops or to go to a coffee shop. And it would be lovely to see you back there. We're slowly getting our Sunday school back on track. I'm hoping to start teenage classes not this Sunday, but the next Sunday, and Brenda's working away on that. And slowly but surely, we'll start just providing more and more for our kids as we go along. I also want to say that the last two broadcast services, we tried to use recordings from inside the church. We thought that might just create a sense of being in church for you. Unfortunately, the sound quality wasn't great, and my brain wasn't coping with on a Saturday night preparing last week's message and a message for the Saturday for the coming Sunday. And so we're going to go back to me recording services at home, where the sound quality will be clearer and you'll be able to hear everything. And that will also mean that we're back on track with all of us doing the same theme. And so this Sunday, as we work through our series on the resurrection, we're going to look at this very exciting thought that Jesus appeared to his disciples saying, I'm really, really alive. And just exactly what does that mean? Then two exciting opportunities. The first is that one of our young people, Tessa Creedeman, has embarked on a project where she is taking the old face masks, and I'll show you a photo of that, the face masks that you're buying in the shops, the blue ones with the little strings. She's sewing them together and making blankets out of them. And so if you have a couple of those old face masks, please don't throw them away. they are snagging around birds and animals and all sorts of things. Rather, just put them through the wash and then bring them to church, and we'll pass them on to Tessa, and she's making blankets from them. And then Debbie Pretorius is working for a nursery school, and they are doing a presentation for parents, for kids, on how to handle stress and anxiety. It looks like a very worthwhile workshop, and so I'll put the advert for that at the end of this check-in. I do hope that the rest of your week is a good one. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday, either at church or you'll at least get to see me online. I do want to encourage you, stay faithful in worship, stay faithful in caring for one another. And if you think of somebody in the church during this week, why not pick up the phone and make contact with them? This is a time in which we're going to need each other and need to continue supporting each other. As the winter comes and concerns about a third wave, we will need to look after ourselves and one another. And let's keep our eyes on Christ and keep our hope in Him. If you find yourself thinking about the various kittens, saying, gosh, I've actually got some stuff that I need to work through and work out, please don't hesitate to give me a call and say, Theo, I'd love to just have a chat. I'd do that with the greatest of pleasure. But it's so important that in this time we grow. And so, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make His face to shine on you. May the Lord lift up His countenance on you and give you His peace. Amen.